Information fueled,
opinion driven. This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
8:06 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to your friends. Welcome on in. And I want to get right to Robby Starbuck, one of my favorites in Middle Tennessee. Robby, always great to have you on. I don't feel like I need to do the big, long intro every single time. I think right now, you are most known as a DEI slayer, and you've been going around and, one company after another, after another, after another. We all know the woke policies of a lot of these, massively big companies like Walmart and so forth. And you go in there and you find out what their DEI policies are, and you work hard for change, because everyone who knows anything about DEI policies knows that, number one, they're BS, and number two, they are incredibly unfair to the employees. And Robby, you've got another one, Nissan. And so let's talk a little bit about how this all came about. This is a very big deal, especially to Tennessee, because as most folks know, they're a big employer here in the state of Tennessee. So number one, Robby, good morning. And number two, let's talk about how you got started with Nissan.
Good morning. And you were exactly right. You hit the nail on the head when you talked about them being a big employer in Tennessee. That's why we moved them up the list, actually. It's one of our only metrics that maybe the outside world, outside of Tennessee, won't understand. But when a company is a big employer here, it's extra important to me that we get them fixed up, because I just want our state to be an example of sanity for the rest of the company, or for the rest of the country, rather. And, I think we effectively did that here, because Nissan wasn't as far gone as some of the other companies we've changed on a national or global scale, but they had a lot of problems. They're still subscribing to this crazy HRC, CEI scoring system that pushes a lot of the, transgender agenda and things along those lines into the workplace. And that's all gone now, so we feel really happy about it. In fact, I woke up this morning to a text from a Nissan employee who said, this is the greatest day that I've had in so long. I can't even tell you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So that's why we do it, because we've delivered now for millions and millions of workers across the United States just the ability to feel like they're not having values that are deeply opposed to their own values forced on them at work.
Well, one of the things, Robby, and one of the things that you were able to change, Nissan was engaged in supplier diversity and hiring. The change is now no quotas for hiring, no quotas for promotions, no quotas regarding diverse suppliers. Focus is now on merit and performance. I would think at this point, companies like Nissan and others would understand that the best person for the job is the best person for the job. So this really is to their benefit to have people based on merit and performance, as opposed to all of this other diversity stuff.
Oh, yeah. We're helping these companies in the long run. Honestly, I think in many ways we're helping them stave off the legal problems that there will be from this DEI agenda. I think there's a lot of legal liability involved in a lot of the DEI policies. So in many ways, I think we're helping them, even if they don't feel like it at the moment when we come to them, because these policies are totally broken. And I think for minorities too, there's this sort of mood that has happened because of DEI, where everybody's sort of feeling like, do people see me as a DEI hire? And so nobody should feel like that. If you're competent, go to your job. You're there because of merit. You don't want to feel like that. And so when a company focuses on merit, what it does is that it lifts that away, and it says everybody's going to be judged by the fruits of their labor and how they do at work. And so if that's the actual environment, that's what it becomes, nobody has to ever think that, nobody ever has to wonder, do people see me that way? And so it's just bringing fairness back for everybody. And I think that's a good thing. Everybody should want to celebrate.
One of the things that I find interesting is, and you've been right on the forefront of all of this, is there is a mood change in America. And I can feel it. I can feel it. I can see it. I can hear it. I can watch it on the television. And I think the mood change is that, of course, with Donald Trump coming into office, it just feels like we're returning to sanity. And so are you finding, because you've been doing this a long time, it's been a couple of years now, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, on some level, in many different ways, we really focused hard on the corporate front about 6 months ago. But in general, like we've gone after a lot of these issues in many different facets for a long time. But you're exactly right about just that mood of normalcy. One anecdotal thing I can offer is that, I've heard from executives, because we talk to the executives as we go through these policies and stuff. And lately, I'd say over the last 3 months or 4 months, these executives have been saying, there's a sea change happening where, our employees are finally coming to us upset and pushing back against this stuff. In the past, they didn't do that, even if they didn't like the policies. And so there was this culture of silence previously, I think because people were worried they'd be fired, right? But now you're getting so many people just openly talking about it that it's become much more acceptable to, state your grievances about the unfairness of DEI policy. So, and this goes across so many different parts of America. I mean, we're talking about this is in education, this is in our kids' schools, this is in our workplaces, it's in the entertainment on our TVs. And so there's so many fronts where we have to fight it, but I do think that normal people are making their voices heard. And in many cases, that's what their wallet, and that's the other thing that these companies ultimately fear. It's why they're changing when we come to them, because they see that when we boycott a company because they're not listening to us, those companies have lost literally billions of dollars in their value, in their market cap. So they understand there's a sea change happening.
Robby, when you do this, do you find that this diversity thing that's going on within some of these companies, can you unpeel that back all the way to just like one person who is mandating these, and a lot of the managers and the board of directors or whoever it might be, but does it all come down to like one person's decision to institute DEI, or is it like embedded throughout the entire company? Because it just, as I'm just thinking about all this, it just seems to me like if you've got one person that is in charge of a company and he or she wants to institute these, what I would say is very abusive DEI policies, it comes from one person as opposed to a lot of different people demanding these things. But maybe it depends on the company.
Well, with public companies, it's a little different. So the CEO obviously is a decision maker, right? But they need board buy-in on any decision that's super controversial, because the board ultimately, they control a lot of other things, and the CEO wants the board happy, and the board has fiduciary duty to the shareholders. That's a legal, sort of a duty. So they have to have buy-in, so it's more than one person who decides whether this happens or gets pulled away. However, what we have found is the people largely responsible for, injecting the far left poison into the workplace is usually one person or somewhere between one and four people, where they're true far left activists, and they're using the license they've been given with these programs to just go nuts.
Really interesting.
I have a question for you too, Robby. A bunch of people this is Joan, by the way, I'm sorry. A lot of people are texting in and asking about their own companies and saying, hey, would you mind going after this company, What's your plan? Do you have any particular companies that you're targeting next?
Yeah, we have a list of companies, and we have different metrics we go through, and we're talking to a couple companies right now about their policy sets. So there'll be more in the new year, but we're trying to scale up in the new year to target more companies more efficiently, because we go one by one, which is the most inefficient part of this. But I think with the scale up that we're doing, we'll be able to move rather quickly. People who want to have us take a look at their workplace, if they go to robbystarbuck.com/DEI, there's a tip line there for people to submit evidence or, whatever it is, whatever their story is. And we take a look at it. And when it's time, we typically get back to the people when we're working on the story. So we log it all. We go through all the info. And then when it's time, we'll contact them back.
I'd be willing to bet, Robby, that it's a lot easier now to get these companies to change than it was before, because it's like, it's this guy, Robby Starbuck. Is it the more notoriety and the more successes that you've had, are you finding it easier now to penetrate, get to the decision makers and force change?
Oh, yeah, no question. I mean, you even have the legacy media admitting that, like, we've got an unstoppable movement here. New York Times said that I'm the most feared man in corporate America right now. So
That's
that was
a nice
that was
designation.
Their front page story. Yeah, that was their front page story. And, Bloomberg has done, sort of the same thing. And a lot of these financial, big corporate world papers, same deal. And so now when we go to a company, it's like, okay, what do we need to change? And so it's an interesting dynamic shift. And for us, it's like we're just trying to get to the most positive place for the country. And I think that's one where we have to be rational. And I can't make the mistake of forcing, companies to adopt anything that would be controversial in the other direction too, because at the end of the day, if we truly want neutrality from companies, then that's what we've got to be eagle-eyed after. And so we focused on that, and it's been very successful.
Robbie, got one more question for you. Got to check the roads, though, real quick on WTN. 8:17 on Nashville's Morning News today. High of 47 and no rain. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News. Robby Starbuck is joining us. Robbie, you've got like a bazillion kids, right?
I have four.
To me, that's a bazillion. So, Josh, we've been talking about this morning, where Josh Hawley, good conservative, J.D. Vance as well, has also advocated for raising the child tax credit up to $5,000. Now, a lot of Republicans and conservatives hyperventilating over this. Others are saying and making the argument that if the Republican Party, the conservatives, are pro-family, then this makes sense. And so I'm just kind of curious to where you might stand, a conservative that I very much respect. What do you think about this?
I think I'm going to surprise you here because I support it for a number of different reasons. Here's the first thing we have to look at. So I'm very eagle-eyed on government waste, and I've made that very apparent. There's a lot of areas where we can cut just absolutely tremendous amounts of money. I mean, trillions of dollars in waste over the course of the upcoming years. Now, where is one place where we don't need to nickel and dime? I think that's promoting the right values and family and stability in our country. And here's the secondary aspect to this that a lot of people don't realize. We're facing a serious population collapse problem. The reason they're doing this isn't to get cute. It's to encourage people to continue to have families, have children, because we're not meeting the replacement rate of our dead. So too many people are dying and we're not having enough babies to replace them in the future. And that poses many different risks. So you've seen maybe Elon Musk talk about this and some other people, and it's because it's a very serious problem. In fact, if you go back and look at the collapse of the Roman Empire, it actually really stems from the population collapse. You went from a society that was the first one to have 1 million to one that when it collapsed had about 30,000 people left. And it was largely born from the fact that when you have an abundant society, oftentimes it leads to, a lot of really selfish behaviors and hedonistic behaviors. And ultimately that leads to people not wanting to have kids because they prefer the status and the money and, whatever it may be over, sort of the duty of being a parent. And so I think that and they did it too late. So the Roman Empire tried exactly what we're talking about, but they tried it after the population had collapsed, essentially. So what we're trying to do is stem this off before that happens, because it's a very important thing. And so here's what happens if you don't do this. If you don't fix the population problem and you don't fix the birth rate, you end up a country that has to import massive amounts of labor from third world countries.
Yep.
And so, you've got this problem over in Asia too, where right now it's a full bore crisis, and they are going to have to do that. And it's going to totally fundamentally alter the course of their country and their culture and everything else. So if we want to have American culture, we want to have our country's culture intact, we have to stem off this problem. And so I'm not only okay with it, I fully support it. It's one of the few places where it's money well spent.
Yeah. And Robbie, actually, to be perfectly candid, that does not surprise me. Your opinion does not surprise me. I think it's a great one. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think that this is a great debate for conservatives and Republicans to have. And I, for one, am here for it, and I welcome it, and appreciate you joining us here on Super Talk 99.7 at WTN. Always good to check in with Robby Starbuck. It is 8:21 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. Joan Jones is here with the news. Joan, what's coming up?
Well, it may be the happiest time of the year, but it looks like you may not be getting your packages, at least some of them anyway. And there are more worker disruptions to tell you about, too. Those stories coming up at 8:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Vicky Joan at 8:21. Dan Mandis here. Listen, Christmas is just days away, friends. If you need some last-minute gifts and you're out of ideas, I've got a great one. How about a gift card from the Glock store? Now, if you've got a Glock fan in your life, maybe a two-way supporter in your life, this is the perfect gift. No guessing, no drama, no worry. There's something for everyone involved in two-way at the Glock store. And you can't go wrong at the Glock store. You walk in, and everywhere you see, there's guns and accessories and people that can help you. Now, what's annoying when you go to those big box stores that sell a few guns is that they're not really experts in what they're selling. They may have been working with Pet Supply this morning. Then they've got the guy filling in firearms that afternoon. So come on in, get a gift card of any amount you choose from the Glock store. These gift cards can be used for anything, including, by the way, my favorite aspect of the Glock store, range sessions in these totally unique and secure Shoot 270 shooting rooms, and get a tour while you're at it. So give the perfect gift to this Christmas, a Glock store gift card. The Glock store, minutes from the airport and worth the drive from anywhere.